Because in communication, the first thing there is connectivity. That's why
Mm.
from the time you walk on stage and say the first word, it should already be an instant connection.
So, good evening, everyone. We are on episode 111. So,
Wow.
111.
What a number.
Yeah, that's like triple one. Episode 100. And we are live, and we are again resuming our episode of HR Shouts and Whispers every Saturday. And we have a special guest this evening to discuss about better communication. So, better writing, better communication. So, we have with us a sought after speechwriter, and she is also an author, and she is one of the esteemed members of the Tamaraw Toastmasters Club. So we have with us Miss Edith Magtibay-Garde. How are you, Edith?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm good.
Wow. So it's a, well, I think Saturday, how do you spend your Saturday?
Normally, Saturdays used to be a catch up day. The things that I was not able to do on a weekday, I try to do it on a Saturday so that Sunday will be totally free and relaxed. But Saturday can also be a fun day for me because it's the time I would do the things I would love to do.
So as I mentioned, so Edith, I've met Edith in one of our sessions with my club, which is the Fourth Bonifacio Toastmasters Club, and
Oh, it was a
yeah,
long time ago.
yeah, she was the general evaluator. And we also have with us, okay, one of the members of the Tamaraw Toastmasters Club. Okay, so we have Mr. Don Malsi. Hi,
Hello,
Don.
Don. Hi, Don.
Hi, Miss Edith, and hi, Miss Christine.
Nice to see you here.
Yes, nice to hear with Miss Christine
Yes. So
tonight.
we're going to talk about, well, one of the essential skills that's needed for professionals, and that is better writing. Okay. So Edith, we have in the past spoken of better speaking, better communication. I mean, speaking and then presentation skills. And then this is actually one of the installments of our communication series. But let me just, for the benefit of our audience of HR Shouts and Whispers, can you tell us about your background? So, why did you go into writing, and how did you find your love for writing?
Okay, thank you for that question. I really could not pinpoint the exact date and time when I realized I was into writing, but it started rather early. I think I was in my first year in high school when my teacher in English, Miss Rusgal, she's still alive and well, Milandre Rusgal, at the St. Louis Girls High, she liked my English composition so
Mhm.
much. During those times, we still have the formal composition and the informal. If you had that too, and then normally we had a big bulletin board. I mean, where the best works in every subject area would be displayed, like the perfect score in math, the best showing in science, the number one in the laboratory experiment, and she placed my paper. It was an essay on the bulletin board, and the title was on stargazing.
I see.
Yeah, and I remember my last sentence, even until now. I think it was also what really um, struck my teacher. It was there that stargazing is the art of art for lonely dreamers. Remember, I was raised in Baguio, and starry nights are just so beautiful because during those times it was pollution free. and the moonlight was really surreal, and the stars would really, flood the lights even on a dark evening. And I was really fascinated by the stars. So that maybe got into my teacher. And she said, like, she would develop me and encourage me to write. And then I had this teacher in math. It's funny. She
Mm-hmm.
even said, she even said that if I have to prove the, what do you call that? The parang solution that Edith writes well, it will be
Uh-huh.
a very easy answer. So I think my high school teachers really had a direct hand in forming me as a young writer then. They were very inspiring, they were very encouraging, and perhaps I was also into writing because I love reading, you know. And reading is what you would call, it would be difficult to write well or to write really well if you don't read, because reading gave me the vocabulary, reading gave me the perfect choice of words, and reading gave me the proper adjectives. I think I would always say reading is the key to good writing.
When during our time, my time also, we didn't have the internet, so we would,
Ah, yeah, right. We didn't have
yeah,
that.
we would just read. And then, summer, okay, during this time of the year, okay, so it's summer vacation. Well, people dreaded summer. My classmates dreaded summer vacation because we were not going to school and then we'll be stuck at
Yeah, there
home.
was nothing to do.
But during my time, actually, it was the 80s. I'm an 80s baby, and I was like 12 years old. There were schools like Speech Power,
Yeah,
and
that's
then
right.
and then we have Wilma Cruz Tapalia. So I would be sent in those schools.
Oh, mine was more Denos,
Mhm.
the rival, I think.
Ah, I
Maybe
see.
Napalya was Speech Power. I forgot that of Mordenos. It was
Mordenos.
the one in Rosas Avenue in Quezon City.
Oh, and then we had there were like a lot of summer camps. They're not really like summer camps literally,
Now?
but they're summer camps like, there were like startups, and then they would have their writing clinic or speech clinic for kids. So I would be sent to those camps
Oh,
during vacation.
really?
Yes. Well, my parents were big on,
Right.
communication. I mean, kung hindi ka man lang magaling sa math or sa science, at least you.
Right. Oh, that's true.
So they actually were believers that to be successful, you have to be a good communicator.
Communicator. Yeah, that's very, I believe in that because you cannot escape communications.
So we have our guest also here. So joining us, okay, we have James Ezekiel. So he's the president of our club, our Toastmasters Club for
Hi.
Bonifacio. Hi, James.
Hey,
Hi, kumusta? Kasama ko si VP Ed.
Okay, so our vice president,
wow.
si Cristel Arsenio. So, and then we have, Don
Speechwriter.
Masi.
Hi,
Yes.
James.
So I think, James, there's like something on your signal. Well, we are actually on live stream, and
Strap by.
we're
Strap
having an
by.
interview. Yeah, we're having an interview with Edith Garde. So, and then good evening to the members of HR Shouts and Whispers. We have Angelique Tuhelio, who's also watching us on live stream. So anyway, going back to our conversation, so seems like this was like a very good skill to develop when you're studying. Okay, but this is the question, because I also am like a teacher for communicate for kids, Edith. Why do
Yeah.
Filipino students, why are they intimidated with, pursuing writing?
All right. Pursuing writing, I guess it has something to do with our parents way back then. You know, when I remember very clearly when I told my parents that I wanted to be a journalist, I wanted to pursue my writing. This is what they told me. There is no money in writing. Like writers are die of starvation, something like that. And writing was not a life skill that could earn or bring back bring home the bacon, like unlike when you're a lawyer, an engineer, a doctor, or even a teacher. But writing, at that time, I think we had a very limited platform for writers. But it was always a passion. I said I would be a writer no matter what. See, so I think it was something to do with parents discouraging their children to write. Next, I think it has something to do with language. You know, English is not our mother tongue. It
Yes.
is not even a second language, as many educators would claim, because those in the provinces, those in more remote areas, English is still a foreign language. They have they have their dialect, and then they have to contend with Filipino, and then English is really more of a foreign language. That's why, and it's very difficult to write in English unless you grew up with the language, because English has so many nuances. English has so many complex structures. Like, for example, the choice of words in figures of speech, or the tenses. There are regular verbs and irregular verbs. There are progressive. It's one complete language that can be intimidating unless you had it when you were still young. I learned that the best year or the best age to learn a foreign language is when you are 9 years
But
old.
because those are the formative years.
Yes, yes. But to learn it as an adult, well, there are many people who learn it as an adult, but can be very challenging also. It's
Because
like intimidated. And I learned also, to write in Filipino, you can express the sentiments more in Filipino. You can go deep down into your emotions when you say it in Filipino. Because with another thing, we do not have a one-on-one translation in English.
yeah, that's correct. You cannot
Oo.
you cannot actually it's like it's a little bit lopsided, like when you translate it word per word and then you lose the
Right.
meaning. So, well, I actually envy people who can really write in Filipino because, well, because
Right.
of my education, because we were really trained, we were programmed to really like the English speakers. Okay, so that's my generation. And we had debate team. So I think those were the activities, I would say
Before.
pre-internet days, because now it's
Yeah,
like
the
you have a lot,
debating.
yeah, debate team,
Yeah.
etc.
Now
So,
you can debate on Facebook.
well, yeah, debate on Facebook, and then it's no holds barred.
Right.
So what about, so when we look at your biography, so you were an educator, and then you're a sought
Yes.
after speechwriter of the armed forces, and then you are a corporate consultant. So
Right.
yes, but when you are honing people to improve their writing skills or communication skills, what do you first teach them? What's important? What's more important, like gestures or building vocabulary? What should be the priority?
Why don't you upskill in the comforts of your own home? Improve and add more certificates in your resume. Simple, direct, easy. Visit the playlist in our YouTube channel. Browse through our videos and choose the video that interests you. Send in your requests for a particular video and we will send back the certificate via email. Watch this full
In
Yes.
I always, it's my first rule in writing, you have to read. You have to read because there's no way you can be a good or effective writer if you do not read. So what do I tell them? Read anything. I would say read the newspapers, read the editorial, read the opinion sections. Now I don't think people read; they just glance the linkages on Facebook. But good, okay, those are still reading materials. Read. You have to read, I said, because there's no way really you can develop. Because where do you get your ideas? See, where do you get, for example, now, to kill a mockingbird, how would you expect to have an intelligent conversation or a very interesting argument if you have not read that book? So I always tell them, read. In fact, I even tell them, when you were young, when you were growing up, there was a dearth of reading materials unlike now. Alam mo yung pati pambalot ng tinapay, di ba yung mga old newspapers, pag nakakita ka ng comic strip doon, binabasa mo pa yon. See, read anything you can get your hands you can hold, you can get your hands on because there's no way. And then I also tell them, so when you read, and then as a writer now, begin with things you are most familiar with. Write about the things you love most. Like you can write, it may sound corny, no, but as a beginning writer, you don't write about very like exotic things or things that are so cerebral. You write about your family, you write about your first crush, you write about your disappointment, you write your first taste of success. Write something personal, close to your heart, because it is there where you can bring out the words and the emotions. And then later on, you can upgrade your writing, write about issues, write about advocacies, write about principles and convictions. But I also tell them that you have to have a journal. The journaling is very important, or diary for that matter. Or I tell them, get a notebook and every day write something. It can be a word, a sentence, a phrase, and before you know it, you are writing a paragraph. See? So that's it. You read, keep a journal, write every day, no matter how busy you are. It can be first thing in the morning when you wake up. You just say it's a great new day. These are the things, it's the discipline of doing something regular at the right time, not really right time, at the same time. And then in the evening before you sleep or before you say your prayers, you write something.
Mm-hmm.
And I also learned that when you progress into a writer already, or you really are deep into your writing, you get a specific place in the house or a particular place. Me, I have my study table
Mm-hmm.
where you keep there's quiet there, there's the light above you, and then you spend writing there. You have a regular place to write, and it helps because then you are focused, your thoughts are clear. So these are the little practices that build up,
So,
but it really helps when you love writing. It really helps.
were you able? Did they ever get you to like maybe be a consultant for business communications? And with business communications, what principles should we follow? Like nowadays, there are a lot of things being communicated over email. So, what can you? Well, we have joining us, Edith. So, what can you say about business communications in in the digital age?
In the digital age, it is so impersonal. Like it's more of technology. But I believe that even in the digital age, even in the world of technology, you have to put heart and soul in it. I mean, it cannot be as abstract as a number because words are not statistics. I'll always say that words have power because behind every story, behind every word is a story. So even in this digital age, when we practice something, economy of words, you have to be concise, you have to be brief because people are busy. Chief executives don't go through a whole gamut of paragraph, but know the keywords that would really get their attention. So you may write briefly, concisely. What you can say in 2 words, don't say in 5 words, but know the key elements or the defining words that can bring out the idea. Because in the economy of words, you do not have to kill the beauty of an idea. Economy of words does not really mean just chopping off words, but it
Mm-hmm.
is keeping the essentials, keeping the words that have meaning. Those that's the thing to keep in being digital. You still keep the essentials. In being digital, you dispense with words that can be disposed of, but know the words that can stand alone and still have meaning. That's for me would be digital communications.
And because it's so efficient, I think
Mm.
this is like a two-step approach. Like usually a complex issue, you should still tackle it with a face-to-face meeting and then use the email communication to document the salient,
Yes,
the highlights of the
the
meeting.
highlights or the really important thing that maybe forgotten or maybe misinterpreted in an oral conversation.
That's correct. Because this is actually a mistake of a lot of people because most people are working from home nowadays.
Ah, yes,
Uh,
yes.
they have very long emails.
Them all the time.
Well, it's a very
Them all
long
the time.
email, so it's like you need to scroll down, and it's like very busy. It's a very busy layout, so it kind
Oo.
of distracts. I mean, it's like sometimes some people are sensitive, and then they causes migraines to some people if it has a lot of words. So what I usually do is have a face-to-face meeting first because the issue is quite complex, and then after the meeting, then you can afford to economize.
Yeah, right. But writing for the armed forces, writing for the military, I've learned to really because they don't have much time to read. No, it's an action oriented organization, so
Mhm.
they do not have the luxury of time to go through long writings. So you just keep it brief and simple. Like for example, I was writing a speech for a general, and then he told me bluntly that I'm talking to soldiers and they're standing in the field in the morning sun. So keep
Mhm.
the words short and simple. Because before you know it, they may be cursing you at the back already because you're saying long drawn sentences. So really, I have learned to keep my speeches snappy, like a salute, snappy as a salute, short, even curt, but always polite.
Well, in your book, okay, so I'll show your book. So this is a book that you have written. Okay, so
Yes, thank
I've been
you.
reading this. Okay, when at night I read this, and then the way it's written, they're actually very simple.
Yeah.
Then very very concise. So, but what was the inspiration behind Spark? So that speak, pause, assess, react, kindle.
Okay. The inspiration behind Spark,
So.
I would always say that we are our own spark. Wherever you go, you are a spark. You can be a spark in the dark. You can be a spark of hope and all that stuff. A spark to me, and I tell them, it's not a fire. So a spark is just a tiny glimpse of hope. So like words, you can have one word, two short words, but it creates a spark in a person's heart. It touches a person's soul. So spark to me was that inspiration. Like you can speak words, you choose your words, kindness can never be out of place. And then when you speak, you always consider that people may not be able to catch up with you as fast as your thoughts go. So we learn how to pause. Because when we pause, people savor the words or it gives them time enough to let your words sink. Then we have to assess who our audience, who our listeners and readers, and be mindful of where they're coming from. So that's why we have to be sensitive, gender sensitive, religious sensitive, um, sensitive in every aspect, considerate in our words. And then we assess again, or we rekindle, or we write, and then we reassess, and then K is the kindle, to kindle hope, to kindle inspiration. So that's the inspiration behind Spark. It is a complete processing of thoughts and emotions behind reading, behind writing. That's why before I used to use words that are difficult. I mean, really, that are not used every day. And as a Toastmaster, we're always evaluated, like, use words that are simple, that can be understood by the audience. Speak words that can have relevance in today's setting. So a large part of my writing has also been influenced by the discipline of Toastmasters. So whom do you write for? You address, that's very important.
There is a quote there that actually stuck to, resonated with me, and that was express, do not impress. Okay, so that's
Yes,
chapter 4. That's the title of your fourth
yes.
chapter. And I actually, it resonated with me because this one has something to do with to connect with your audience. You
Yes,
have to do not level. Do not actually, speak and level down. Okay, but you have to actually deconstruct things and then make things more understandable to them. So I think that's the essence of speaking to an
right.
audience.
Yes.
But in today's I think it's cancel culture. Okay, what can you
Yeah.
say about the some arrogant post in Facebook? Okay, so when people try to show what wield their power or show arrogance about when they mention their opinion, what can you say about that?
Actually, it defeats the very purpose of communication. When you use, when there is haughtiness or arrogance in the way you speak or write, you defeat the purpose of communication. Because if you look at the word communication, it's you and I.
Mm-hmm.
There are two very significant letters. There's you and I in communication. So if you try to distance yourself or put yourself above what you think would be the reach of your audience, then you are cutting off the connectivity. Because in communication, the first thing there is connectivity. That's why from the time you walk on stage and say the first word, it should already be an instant connection. If you're not able to connect with them during those crucial seconds, then you have lost your audience already. So that's why I say I try my very best really when I write, especially the introduction or the first chapter, how I place myself in the place of the reader.
Mm-hmm.
If I were to read this, would it interest my reader or would it turn the reader off? So I try as much as possible to place the connectivity from the very beginning. It cannot be at the center because by that it would be too late. You cannot build up connectivity. Connectivity begins at the first word. We say that, well, we build up the connectivity. No, it cannot be built up. It has to be there, present in the beginning. That's why I use really simple words. Before they would call me, in Toastmasters they call me dictionary, reading, walking almanac, because I used to have those, not because I wanted to, but I use those high sounding or highfalutin words. But I have learned to really connect. It's
Mm-hmm.
not going down. It is not going down. It's being with them. It is being with my audience. One mind, one heart. It's not go down to your audience. No, that's very demeaning. We do not go down to our audience. I think we meet at a certain point where we are equal.
Yes, I agree. I have a practice of just using one highfalutin word per speech. So that's just a
Okay. I
that's
mean,
just a habit.
you should also upgrade. So in the way in Toastmasters, you should also educate and upgrade them. That's why we have the word for the day.
That's correct.
uh,
But yeah, I do notice that for Asian speakers of English, there's a term actually that I encountered. It's called over Englishing. So we over Englishing means that we tend to use those highfalutin words, okay, or idiomatic expressions that have lost their meaning over time.
yeah,
So, and then even the native speakers of English do not understand it.
you're right. And I always tell my people the group, or I mean, because when I become general evaluator, I don't just really, like, for example, grammarian. You don't just pick up what is wrong with their tenses or the subject verb agreement. But on my part, I believe in enriching and enhancement. So I tell them that these are words that are no longer being used, and they have been outdated, they have been, well, buried. So that's why we refrain from saying without further ado. And then we really refrain from saying, for example, those expressions that connect one part of the meeting to the other. We can use them with more now language, like moving forward or moving on. Let's stop saying, okay, the next part of the program. This is not a program, it's a meeting. So we say we refrain or we avoid that totally. The next part. Perhaps we can just say, moving on. Now let us, or we have reached now the most awaited portion of the meeting, the table topics. So as Toastmaster of the evening, I think it is also sometimes a challenge on us to be more creative in the way we say one part of the meeting as we progress to the other part, or as we navigate the different portions. It uses our creativity how to connect these. Sometimes that's why our Toastmaster meeting is so boring, because the words are so predictable. Because the words we use as Toastmaster of the evening does not add color or does not provide excitement. See, that's why I say that the Toastmaster of the evening provides the energy and is the life of the meeting. So if you have a Toastmaster of the evening who is competent in language, who can put a little drama, who can use words that excite and maintain or sustain your momentum, then that would be excellent.
But for again non-Toastmasters, okay, what we're talking about is like the format. So we usually have sessions, okay,
Yes,
regular sessions, and then we have Toastmaster of the day or evening, the host. Okay, then we have portions like the prepared speeches, and then table topics. Usually, the most exciting part is the table topics because it's
right.
like for impromptu speeches.
I like that.
Yes. So in Toastmasters, so you've been in Toastmasters, well, for the longest time. So what's in Toastmasters that keeps you attending the Toastmasters meeting and even hopping to the various clubs?
I've been a Toastmaster for 24 years. Now, and they tell me,
Wow.
what? And then they tell, you keep attending the same meeting, the same format. But it's not the format, it's not the structure. It's the environment that we create. It's the people we meet. Take a look at this. I said the icebreaker. Why is the icebreaker my favorite speech? Because here is a person who is a total stranger to you. Here is a person who hardly know you, but is willing to open his heart and bare his soul by telling the story of his life, without the fear of being judged, without the fear of being, talked about. Here he is just telling the story of his life, his heartache, his failure, the scandal in his family, the failure of his parents' marriage, and he's telling it in a story that can be very entertaining. Sometimes you even cry with him. So you see, it's not how many. I always say each icebreaker is different. No two icebreaker speeches are the same. We may have gone to the same school, grew up in the same barrio, had lived the same life of poverty, but our life is not exactly the same. So it's that in Toastmasters, I meet people, I learn even from young Toastmasters. I learn something from them as I share what I know. It's the learning that is very dynamic in Toastmasters that I look forward to. And I really am very available as general evaluator because there is this passion in me to pay it forward. Yeah, Toastmaster has been a large part of my life, and I've learned not only English or not only grammar. That's even beside the point. I've learned about interaction. I've learned lessons, painful lessons, when I was too proud as an evaluator, when I was unforgiving as an evaluator. I also learned painful lessons on how to deal with people. Somebody told me once that remember, not all people can have the same level of language competence that you have. So be more understanding. So be more compassionate. These are the last things I learned in Toastmasters. And it is one way of communicating also when you communicate kindness or gentleness in the way you evaluate, or when you communicate appreciation for the roles they take as a general evaluator. I think that is the richness of Toastmasters. It is not only about language. Perhaps it is the language of humanity. That is Toastmasters.
Well, with attending the Toastmasters meetings, you learn to be, yes, compassionate, also affirming of people's struggles, and then
Yes.
also their triumphs, because like
Right.
there are more junior speakers than you get to evaluate, and then you actually share their nervousness. Okay, you
Right.
yeah, and then you learn to be more kind, because I actually am very well, when I was doing, when at work, okay, when I started out as a communication coach, I used to be very strict with grammar, and then also
Right.
nitpicking. But when you think about it, you're at the end of the day, you are the coach, and then there should be some progress, and to be able to do that, you have to motivate that person, so you have to do it constructively.
That's very true. In fact, I say that in Toastmasters, there is it's become a way of life. I cannot imagine myself not being a Toastmaster. Imagine, even when we were doing this physical meeting and I would be
Mm,
the evaluator, remember we have the manuals? I would really write and fill out the page. The comments.
yes,
I would really take time to write it. But
it's
now compared
because,
to Zoom, it's very different.
well, there are some misconceptions about Toastmasters. Okay, so we do have we have formal manuals, and then right now we're high tech. We have like a learning management system, so that's what the membership fee is for, because we have to to be accredited as a member to have access to that, because people ask me, why do we have to pay a membership fee in Toastmasters? So
Of course.
so actually that's part of the maintenance, okay, because
Yeah.
we have pathways. Okay, you get to learn the pathways when you attend as a guest, so that there's a little bit of mystery. You ask about the pathways, and then when you are a member, you have access to the Toastmasters portal, and there you go through the journey. Okay, there is a manual for that. So we don't just talk without any structure, because there's like
Yeah.
a misconception about our
There's
sessions.
a pattern also, no? You just don't go there and talk. There are objectives. I think that is what disciplines us as writers. We write with the objective in mind.
That's correct. We always have, that's actually what I say to people. I mean, I think all writers here, we have to have an objective. That's why when you also do business communication, you have to also know the business strategy, or okay, the
Right.
objective for certain communications, okay, and then certain memos, and then, circulars. So,
It's
so
very
right now, what keeps you busy, Edith?
well. I'm busy promoting my book. No, but that isn't really that hard because my book sells by itself, or they get I get referrals. But I
Yes.
still I do not believe in putting my book in bookstores kasi
There's
I
another Toastmaster, a different club, I think. That's Nelson D. Okay,
yeah,
this afternoon he also came out with his new book. So Broken
right.
Faith. Okay, so I attended also his launching, and then because I'm actually all for supporting Filipino writers. In
Yeah,
fact,
thank you. Me
yes,
too. I buy from Filipino authors.
yes, okay, because well, we first is the pandemic
Right.
sorry, the pandemic, we have this project in HR Shouts, and we wanted to have an anthology of Filipino authors, okay, from various fields, not just HR. Okay, so that's why we're inviting people like you to guest in our FB live.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes. And then, okay, moving forward with communication and everything. So like there's a trend right now, okay, of call center talk, okay. So when they adopt like certain colloquialisms, okay, into the language, so like OMG, etc. So what do
Right.
you think of that trend? Like, just speak like, for me, I just speak like a normal person, okay, like how I was taught, just basic formal English, etc. But how about the call center speak? Okay, so what do you think about that?
Well, the call center speak is really based on the need. Their particular environment calls for particular requirements, and it has built a language of its own that is uniquely theirs. But as long as they can be understood. Now, me, at the beginning, I really had a difficult time trying to decipher or to decode what those meant. But it just takes a time. Like, may I ask questions? What do you mean by that? Or I do a little research. I mean, that's where learning comes in. But I appreciate that because language is dynamic.
It's
It grows.
evolving.
It is not dead. It evolves. It is alive. And I think we should be as engaging as the language. And like there's such a thing as a sword speak, right? They also have the gay lingo. And
Mm-hmm.
we cannot, I was writing for a very young client who belongs to the LGBTQ community. And, the title of her book, which will be launched in Hong Kong, would be Because She's a Female Pilot. You know,
Mm-hmm.
it's beautiful. She's beautiful. And cargo pilot pa, hindi
Mm-hmm.
passenger plane. And she wrote about flying through rainbows. And of course, I thought lang yung rainbow was the rainbow. But the rainbow pala was a symbol of the pride community. And, I like her words. They're
Mm-hmm.
unique, they're creative, and diversity of humanity. So that's why I think we should learn to keep our minds open and even our hearts to be receptive to this kind of languages. Of course, except the vulgar language, except the
Yes.
language of vulgarity, or obscenity, we shun that. But for the language that is uniquely coming from groups, like for example, millennial was the in word before, no, the millennial. So we learn to think and feel, or learn use the word that millennials appreciate and talk about, and it's easy. It's not really that difficult.
Well, what I do is I try to adjust to
Right.
the level of the person that I'm talking to. That's why, like, we have to. Well, when you're in HR, we have to, to connect, and we have to like observe people, and then we just try to mirror them so that we can blend in. That's what we
Right.
do.
But in the HR, you have a very, what do you call this? Deep sense of understanding, patience, kindness when you're in HR.
Well, we try to blend in because
Right.
yes. So that's well, actually for managers, that's what we actually advise. Okay, try to connect to the person, try to maybe don't talk down to the person.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's like I've learned that principle of not talking down. I used to be in marketing as well. And are you familiar with the channel Nickelodeon? When they do their marketing,
Yes, yeah,
yes. So if you notice the way they talk, I mean, their promos to kids, they have this principle of not talking down to kids, like talking to the kid like an adult.
right. This is very right.
So it's very American. So when I would teach managers, I would tell them, do not talk down to your employee. You just have to just adjust to their level. Maybe just work around certain things, maybe deconstruct certain things so that you can present it at their level, not below their level.
It was what, that was the challenge when I was first beginning to teach at the armed forces.
Mhm.
Because the generals think they're always talking down, giving commands. You know,
Yeah, because very authoritarian.
yeah. But I think you're not in the battlefield. There is no war. So stop talking to people like you were talking to soldiers or giving commands. Because in war, there is no margin of error because human lives are at stake. So the language is also very compelling and commanding. But then you have to learn how to relax. The war is over, or you're not in the war. So you become I taught them how to civilianize their communications. Because
Civilianize.
they're
I
always
like
like,
that.
you're always giving commands. You're always like, yes sir, no sir. Well, we're not yes sir, no sir orientation here. But it was a beautiful thing. It was one of the best teaching experiences I ever had. And when you see them gracefully becoming successful in the civilian world. Because after their retirement at a very young age, 56, you're still very capable. You're still, both mind and body are still strong. They get assignments in so many posts. That's where they deal with civilians. And then that's where they get my mentoring or coaching. Like, all right, this is how now you don't tell them to stand at attention. You don't expect any salute from them, but you always say a very courteous, friendly good morning or good afternoon. See, even when the way you greet, you have to be more mellow. You have to be more gentle. You have to adjust, and it's nice.
Well, it's intriguing, okay, because for me, being in the armed forces, even if I'm not a soldier, I'm like maybe a speechwriter, that would be an intimidating environment. But can you tell me like some of the pieces that you wrote for the armed forces? Like what were your assignments? Like what kind of speeches were you writing?
I was a speechwriter for the armed forces for 23 years, and I wrote all kinds of no, wala tuloy. For a while. I think I'm lost.
You're still here. I can
I
still
feel
see you. Oh, yeah.
you can still hear me. Okay. My video, I mean. Can you see me?
Yes, you
Okay.
are still on.
Okay. I wrote all kinds of speeches. I wrote all kinds of speeches for them. But most of the military is an organization that has its own functions, its own culture. So, for example, one of the most in-demand speeches I wrote was the assumption of command. That means
Mm,
when they are new to the post, they have to assume a post or a new assignment, or what you would call relinquishment when they finish their tour of duty in a certain place, so they have to relinquish. We have the turnover ceremony, so you entrust now the responsibilities of your office to another incoming officer, or the eulogy, like, or the necro, when a general or a soldier is killed in battle or dies.
mm.
They have very elaborate necrological services. And a eulogy need not always be heartbreaking or tear jerking. A eulogy can also have a sense of humor. It's because you honor the life. And so part of the life would have humor also. It's a very rich, diverse speeches. Like, the most in demand would also be a necro, assumption of command, or relinquishment of command. Anniversaries. When a unit or an office observes, for example, 10th year anniversary, They put so much meaning and significance because it becomes a tour of duty or a mission statement when a unit or an office has finished another year, 5 years, 10 years, or even 20 years. Or the Army, the Philippine Army anniversary, the Philippine Air Force anniversary, the Philippine Navy. You know,
Wow.
I wrote for General Gasmin. I was his only speechwriter. And I have to accompany him in some of his trips out of town just to see how the soldiers respond to him. You know, all kinds of speeches. Sometimes they are also taken as wedding sponsors. So what do you say to the bride and groom? It's like actually the whole life is built on speeches in the military. It's a very it's an organization with distinct practices and traditions, and
So
it's always carried by a speech.
so for 23 years, okay, here's the $1 million question. How did you deal with writer's block? Did you ever have writer's block? And then how did you deal with it?
Writer's block, sometimes they say, like, I'm not in the mood to write, and
I cannot find any there's it doesn't things don't make sense, and you just keep on
right,
typing.
especially like, for example, when you write a speech, you cannot make it so predictable. Like,
Mm,
they would know which word is coming next, although it may be an anniversary speech. It has to be different from the last time you wrote one.
that's
So how do
correct.
I deal with writer's block? I just let, for example, I get one word out of the occasion. For example, an anniversary in for this particular unit. What is this particular unit known for? Or, for example, you are writing a general's eulogy for soldiers. Remember those 10 Marines who died before? So those were heartbreaking scenes. So what words would come out to really strike, the heart and the sentiment? You choose one word. I get one word out of that. And from that word, the ideas would flow. And maybe because I don't experience writer's block anymore. It's just the mood. Like, I have the ideas, but I'm not just in the right frame of mind. I'm not in the mood to write about this thing. I just let it pass.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was in the office, they were very kind to me. My seniors, my military superiors, they would allow me to play computer games. Like,
Just to
it's
relax
so
your mind, right?
yeah, I feel like I know what games were those. I would be allowed to play that during office hours because then they would know that I'm
Well,
just finding something to really put me in the right frame of mind.
that's correct.
As a
Because
writer, I was a privileged mama. I mean, I was spoiled. I was spoiled. So you can come in at 11 o'clock. You can come in, but of course, one general changed all that, and he said, with the late Angelo Reyes, he said, I meet the press at 6 o'clock or even 7 o'clock. So by that time, I should know what's in the newspapers already. So we write those buzz lines.
mhm.
So what do you tell media? So you read 4 or 5 major dailies, and then what are the news that are favorable to the armed forces, and what are the news that are unfavorable? That's where you build up the ideas. How would the spokesman say this? And we were trained how to write those things. We had ideas to build on.
Well, actually, you're just like an HR practitioner because you would actually try to mold it according to the personality of
Yeah,
the
that's right.
speaker.
You cannot, I'm not Edith Garde speaking. I'm General Saw speaking. So I have to frame the words according to fit his personality.
When I was writing for the former Senator Webb, I would actually read the speech and I would mimic his mannerisms. The way he,
Okay.
when you read out, when you read it out, you have when you wrote something and then you need try to figure out if it has a flow. So you have to read aloud the speech. Okay.
Right.
So do
Right.
you do that, Edith?
Yeah. When I was writing for the late General Angela Reyes, He was known as the MacArthur, because he was, he's very pompous, he's very alert, he's, all that stands. So the words in his speech should also be curt and commanding and compelling. Unlike other military officers who who do more on civilian work, they're more gentle, they are more kind or tender even. But for General Reyes, always speaking before Congress, before senators, before foreign media, we had to use the speech that would address his personality at the moment. He's projecting authority, confidence, competence,
Yes.
and we also use those words. And but I have also this experience with a certain general, and I use the word, for example,
Mm,
mobilizable.
mm.
And then when he was reading the speech, like uh, uh, our reserve troops must be mobile. I told you not to give me tongue twisters. So from then on, I gave only one or two short syllable words.
That's correct.
Because he was a difficult time. That means he didn't practice reading the speech before he read it.
Yes. So this one, okay, so we are about to, well, time flies. Okay, so
Right.
our viewers, they just listen because they just want to learn a lot of things about speech writing. But for people who are first time speech writers, and also for those who are venturing into Toastmasters, what are your tips in writing a good speech?
Okay. Usually I would tell them, like, write something close to your heart as a beginner. Write something that you are familiar with, because then it would not be very challenging to do background research, or, like, for example, if I love plants. So as a beginner, I would write about my plants.
Mhm.
So something like that. Write something about something familiar. Write something dear to your heart. When you now eventually you will have to upgrade that. You will learn how to what's being talked about in the newspapers, or now what's being talked about on Facebook. For example, how would you find the relevance of To Kill a Mockingbird in your life now? What would be your mockingbird? See,
Mhm.
so you upgrade it now little by little, gradually. Or for example, you write about issues, or about personalities. But the thing here is you have to have the discipline of writing every day. Every day. It has to be a discipline that you write until you cannot I cannot go a day without writing. But then, aside from being able to write every day, you have to read. You must read, because reading gives you the words, the choice of words. Reading
A
empowers
perspective.
you.
Also, the
Yeah, perspective, points of view. It empowers you. It liberates you from many unfounded fears. And reading enriches your mind also. See, if you love to read, it would not be difficult to learn how to write. I think those two would go hand in hand.
So that's actually like a good. Those are actually very precious tips, Edith, because of course a lot of people would want to learn from the mistress of speech writing. So anyhow, okay. So this has been an interesting talk, and this is
Thank you so
actually,
much.
yes. And then anyway, for those who want to take classes from you and those who want to take training from you, where can they contact you?
Facebook or Messenger.
Yes, they're very accessible on Messenger. You can contact Edith Garde. Okay, she's on Facebook. So that's
And
how
I'm
I
online.
contacted
I'm
you.
online 24/7.
Yes. So anyhow, okay, thank you, Edith, for
Yeah,
gracing
the
our
pleasure is
FB
mine.
Live this evening. Okay. And
Thank you
then,
too.
yes. And then to those who are, well, who have tuned in, okay, so we have some members who have tuned in like, yeah, earlier. Okay, you can actually stay on the page. Okay, you can watch the replay, and then you can also watch this after 2 days on YouTube. Anyhow,
Mhm.
okay, Edith, I'll see you
Right.
in Toastmasters. And then,
Sure.
yes, and then guys, okay, you can buy a book from Edith. Okay, so this is the book. So Spark. Okay, so that's speak, pause, assess, react, and kindle. So it's actually a very light reading. Gives you some tips in speech writing and also in doing speeches and your communication.
Right. Are you
Okay.
going to Cebu for the convention?
Oh, I will not. I won't be able to because I'm
Okay.
actually
No, but
working
there's
for
a
seven
virtual. There
days.
is a virtual part. You can go
Oh,
virtual.
I'll go online. I'll go online.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, we're very
Okay.
active in also, Edith, you can actually invite people to the Tamaraw Toastmasters Club.
Ah, yeah. So I have two clubs. One
Mhm.
is Tamara, which means first and third Thursdays. They always post it, and then I'm also a member of Pikpa Cebu. We meet first and third Friday, and sometimes almost practically every Friday at 7 o'clock.
Wow.
They're hybrid. There is the virtual and there is the physical also.
Yes. So I'm a member of the Fort Bonifacio Toastmaster Club. We meet on
Yeah.
Mondays and Saturdays, after office on Monday at 6 p.m. and Saturdays at 9:30 a.m. We're still virtual, but we'll see if we can go hybrid.
No, but Pikpa Cebu has been doing virtual from the very beginning.
No,
They meet physically. Of course, they're based in Cebu, and we outside we meet. We have the virtual, or we via Zoom,
that's
and we
correct.
connect. It's very interesting and exciting.
Yes. And a lot of people have been joining Toastmasters because, well,
Right.
it's a hobby. Okay. And then it's also like people are finding it very, to distress. Okay. So
Yeah, it's therapeutic actually.
therapy. Yes. Well, anyhow, okay. So that's Edith, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we've presented Miss Edith Magtibay-Garde. Okay, and I do hope that you join Toastmasters and then you get her book and then you keep on watching HR Shouts and Whispers. Okay,
Thank you
so
so much, everyone. Thank
okay, good
you.
evening, guys,
Good
and goodbye
evening.
for
Good evening.
now. Bye bye.
Bye bye.